if you have a company vision and a company culture, I hope that one of the key things is integrity and in caring about your employees.
Yeah.
And really, if you're hiring from your local community, you're going to have that diversity and that inclusion. But then also, again, believe in yourself in your values. And if you believe in your values of bringing your employees up, then a mother like me, who came on board, when I was pregnant when I joined the company, can move from a lower position to quite a high position in a company. We don't need the law to tell us what we should do, right?
Mm.
It is there to enforce something, but since the law now is being removed, of course, then we don't have to do it, but we should always still do the right thing.
Welcome to GroceryPulse, brought to you by Innovar Marketing Agency, where innovation drives strategy and delivers success through experience. I'm George Goodwin, your host, a fourth-generation grocer and marketing expert. This podcast is here to support professionals like you, helping you innovate, grow, and enhance your business. In each episode, we bring in top-tier executives, industry experts, and fellow grocers to share insights, real-world strategies, and actionable advice you could use. If you find value in our podcast, we'd love to hear from you. Send us your feedback to be entered into an Airbnb giveaway or a $100 gift card raffle. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Join us in shaping the future of grocery.
Hey everyone, it's George Goodwin here again, back with another episode of Grocery Pulse. I'm super excited to be here with Deborah Sanchez. She's an amazing mother. She has a few kids, but then on top of that, she's an HR consultant for an advising one of the largest utility company in California. She has around almost 20 years of experience. So I think it's super awesome to be here to pick her brain, not just about the retail, but understanding human resources and how that plays a role in large corporate companies, especially in the grocery space. Thank you, Deborah, for joining me. How are you doing?
Thank you, George, for having me on. I'm doing great.
Awesome. Yeah, so I kind of wanted to jump into the first question, and it's kind of more on the level of what made you get into this industry? Did you support, HR kind of on accident and then realize you had a skill for this in consulting people? You've been with this company for quite some time. Break that down or share a little bit more about that.
Sure. As you mentioned, I used to work in the grocery industry. I don't know if you did mention that actually, but I did used to work in the grocery industry before while I was in college. And then, I advanced throughout college, and then I got into a different industry for a short period of time. And then after I became a mom, I wanted some stability in my life. And of course, I would always love to go back to the grocery industry. I love that it keeps me on my toes. I had a different experience every day. But in the HR arena, at least at this utility company, I was able to find some stability. And so that's what I was looking for. But because I didn't have actual college degree in the field of HR at that point, but I knew my good work ethic. I knew that I always was taught to have great customer service skills, that even if I started out at the bottom of this utility company, that I would be able to work my way up. So I did start at a maybe a little bit lower hourly rate of pay, but I got under some great bosses and mentors in the HR arena. And because they saw my strong work ethic, they just encouraged me. And there was an opportunity for an HR certification that came up, and they helped me get the education I needed to get that additional certification. And that just opened even more doors up for me. So I just, even though I, started at the lowest level, probably one of the lower levels, I honestly was able to work hard. And with every 3 to 6 months, I would work to get some type of promotion or, level up. And again, getting my certification in HR really helped me with that. Finding the right mentors also helped me.
That's awesome. And I think I kind of want to bring out a point. I was listening to a kind of this inspirational speaker, and he's talking about like hiring. And I've heard like a team can make you or break you, especially on a small level to a large, huge, multi-billion-dollar company. You see even administration, how when one moves into the next position, they bring their own team and kind of push out the other team. That kind of helps shift change. But, there's this big concept behind I guess it's the boxing glove employee or the golden spoon employee. And so there's one individual that has gone through, lots of different trials, but lots of work experience, whether, it's different job changes or, pushing themselves from the bottom to the top. And then there's the one individual everything's been handed to them with a golden spoon concept, where maybe they landed, the best internship through Microsoft, and then they went to an Ivy League school, but they didn't get like the life experiences. And so when troubles or hardships come and they're not in the same position of understanding how to be a problem solver, they actually struggle quite often. And then they usually lose that job. So this inspirational speaker, I forget her name, but it was really interesting to say like how maybe there's a mesh of blending both for a team. But when you think about that component, how I interviewed quite a few top individuals this past month, a Fortune 500 CEO and then an Olympic athlete. And a lot of these individuals, they start and then they have to work their way up. What is that component when you see hiring teams or even in the HR? Like, what would you describe those individuals that learn to push themselves through? Maybe also think about yourself, but also think, what pushes a company forward in the HR experience.
Yeah, I appreciate those examples. I do agree. When a company has the opportunity to hire from within its own population and not have to recruit too much out, but rather get referrals from its own employees or from the community, I do feel that there's going to be a little bit more loyalty involved in their work ethic because of that. And also, obviously, there's that brand name recognition. So, if those in top are taking care of that brand name, so that way the employees can be proud and loyal to work for that brand name, then it's going to definitely inspire the employees. And then also, when an employee goes home in their community, when they can say they work for this name or this brand, that's obviously going to also push and increase that employee's own satisfaction with their job. An employee, it's not just about the pay; it is about the management, the work environment, the brand they work for, and the vibe they get back, the feedback they get back from people who are outside the industry. And so when they get that positive feedback, it's going to make them more proud. It's going to make them more conscientious of their decisions throughout their workday. And I think it also, I just know, for example, and this came under a certain leader, he took me and he introduced me to all the executives. He took me to the executive meeting. He prepared me. He said, okay, this is what I'm going to have you present. Or here, what do you think you should present? He obviously, just guided me, but allowed me to speak. And that just really gave me confidence because he had the confidence in me, but then also gave me respect for the leadership because they were willing to take time to listen to me and to our proposal. So there's a couple different levels in that, but I think if the management is open to encouraging the employees, but then of course the employee needs to have the belief in themselves as well. But I think that, just like you said with the golden spoon, I think that someone can always turn and really think outside the box. And sometimes in those situations, maybe a crisis has to come up in their lives in order for them to then, okay, now this is what I need to do to show their worth.
Awesome. Yeah, I like what you said on the point of like it's what like almost a confidence factor too with the individual. It's not just like in a sense of them getting opportunities and not wanting to present. So like example, that individual supported you, kind of set you up in a sense where he knows what you need to do and he kind of coached you. I was recently with a few grocers and we had some lunch this past week. And it was funny because they were talking about their two large supermarket chains and they were talking about like their company review. And they recently realized like they haven't been doing like, I guess, the company review for the people underneath them. And they have like maybe six people that are under their admin team that they need to review before it goes to a bunch of different, like kind of the different teams within those teams. And they've been saying that like, oh, they haven't done a company review for 2 years. And this was something that recently maybe this chain wants to push more agendas, but also be, I guess, pushing their team more. How important are those annual reviews, or is it more would you say in your experience, um, more of like one-on-ones, or is it more dependent on the individual? Like the team member is maybe not as confident, maybe not as motivated. So then maybe they, I think I had a boss once that said, well, how do you work? Do you work creatively, or do you like a little less leadership? In a sense of you'll run with an idea and then I'll come with you and show you what I want? Or is it more like, do you want someone that meets with you continuously? Is it more like a, how do you follow that for employees, but then how do you also stay in line with like, maybe your manual book for a corporate company of, you know 300 to 800 plus employees? Where do you see that mesh that works well for a large corporation?
Yeah, for evaluations and annual, semi-annual evaluations, we've definitely given a lot of things a different try. Leadership is so crucial and so important in these, and transparency. So in HR, we have obviously we do have leadership meetings and small meet online videos and skills, that they can learn how to gather these skills. But like you're saying, I've been we've definitely have the managers to say, how would you like to see this meeting? And that's really where we've changed from just filling in goals, to say, okay, what do you see as opportunities for learning? When a manager just fills in those goals for the employee, it may not connect with the employee. You may see, oh, okay, well, they did this, this, and this, but was there real growth? Was there real job satisfaction? What about the work environment? And really, and for an evaluation, you want to see, those outliers, those positive things, and give an opportunity to praise the employee. So we've definitely, in the last few years, taken the time to adjust our evaluations. It's more about like feedback, and then asking for feedback from the employee, to give feedback to the leaders, in the sense that, okay, like you're saying, do you want this all printed out before our meeting? How do you like to our meetings? Do you like to have them bi-weekly, monthly, less periodically? And then also how to address, because most employees want to grow. They want to see a change.
Yeah.
So one way an employee can do that, an effective way to use those annual meetings, is just saying, okay, well, what are some areas of growth that you would like to see? Ask the employee about their shortages, and then help and encourage those employees. Well, you can offer them an education maybe, or maybe, and there's so many free things out there, or people you might know that you can help them, or you can guide them. And so an employee is more confident to bring up to you, their ups and downs in the department, and
Yeah.
even give advice of how to make improvements.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think it, for some reason, it keeps sticking to me. It's like the people, like if you so at the USC program, Mike Steiner, he's this CEO of Wakefern Foods, and he would always present himself in a very positive way. I mean, everyone would, but he would also push like, if we can be better people, the ones underneath us will be better. And so he would always throw this quote. I might be messing it up slightly, but my main point is getting the main part of the quote. And it's like, if my dad had a better boss, I'd be a better dad, and vice versa with the mother. And I think it's a really understanding, like when you're a better boss, your employees are better. Your employees, like, it's a ripple effect. The parents are better to children, and you create a better society. And I think that's a really important thing. Kind of like, I don't know why I just keep going back to that individual that made that introduction, and it's like, how do you create more team members within your company that do that for each other? And even in the USC program, it was like a lot of steward leadership. And it's really like serving others how you would like to be served. And so what they did was they kind of flipped a pyramid, where it's like there's a pyramid where there's like the admin or the CEO or the president, and then the managers and the employees, and then the contract and freelance. And they kind of flipped it upside down. I now more in the workforce, not in the program so much, it's hard to do that. Like, I'm not going to go tailor to some individual, it's hard to have that balance of the steward leadership. But I do see like the results when you serve someone that's when you're above them. there is that like mentality of where they're like, wow, and I think even growing up as a fourth generation grocer, my dad would go and clean the restrooms. And that taught me as, his son, no matter where you are in a position, greeting someone, doing the small task, doing the large task, making the decision for expanding, for not expanding, staying humble, but then also innovative. I think so important in the HR space. And I think it can't be said enough, but it's like, how do you balance that when there's too much structure with manuals and different, it's like, I just want to get in and get out type of thing versus like, how do I set others up for more success where if my team performs well, we get our company becomes more profitable. Do you have any experiences or any kind of like any initiatives that you were able to launch that kind of pushed or fueled your team a little bit?
Well, I think that's the unique part about HR. Really, HR is not really linked to a monetary, and they're not bringing money into the business. And so, a lot of times, the higher ups, if they're trying to cut their or make more money or make less money, they look to HR and they look to see, oh, who can we cut? But what they don't look is at the benefits. And what's important is that, well, I'm not saying they don't look at the benefits, but what's important to look at is the benefits and the value HR brings to the organization. And so companies can choose to do the minimum that the law requires. And in California, the law is very generous, right? But there's definitely those opportunities for a manager to willingly, so for example, we used to have, we have these high periods of work and overtime that's required. But guess what? These families have games. They have kids and games and activities. And so, and the law does allow you to take the time off that you need. But what about giving them a benefit? Give them allow them to use their vacation. And believe me, if you do that as a manager, use their maybe paid time off and things for that, you're going to get that loyalty and that hard work that makes up for that lost time.
Hmm.
And so I really think that managers, it's great to just to really understand the benefits in a positive way that their employees need a work-life balance and not just to see it as an employee trying to take advantage or not work, but rather, okay, this employee needs a time off so they can reboot and then they can really be focused when they're here at work. We have most of our employees, over 50% of our employees, are not remote or they're working in the office or in the field. And so, we want to make sure that our employees are safe. And one of those ways to do that is to make sure they're able to relax on their off time or take that protected time off. And also to make sure your culture allows for that. Like in California, we have the benefit of fathers being able to take time off when their child is born. A lot of times, we obviously have the benefit the mothers can do that too. But a lot of times, maybe the work environment gives a father a hard time, or their culture thinks odd if they take time off when the mother's already taken time off or something like this. So, just encouraging them to take their benefits and helping the managers understand that when they have that special times at home, that they're going to definitely it's going to show in their good work at the office.
That's really cool. And I think that, you know, there's the balance of life work balance. And I think even as a company, pushes agendas or pushes goals or sets goals for employees, helping them understand even in the employee space, if you can, when you're not working, really enjoy and be present with your family, there's a ripple effect of coming to work ready to work. Not distracted and more focused. I think there's a study about children, and the children that were doing well in class, a lot of times it was a balance at home. And the children that were struggling, it was a lot of times it was because there was a family situation at home that affected them during that school session. And so I think it's funny how that even plays to as adults, even to companies. If you take care of your employees, your employees are going to be there when you need them and perform in the right time and need, or whatever the case might be. So, Deborah, kind of when we talk about company culture or physical examples of, creating that morale for, the employees. You know, in all honesty, I think women are some of the best employees in loyalty to companies. There's some stats I don't know, but I believe there's some stats on the male being, he moves jobs every 2 years, and females, you know, how do you keep those employees? But then also, what are some simple tasks where you could do on a small company, small independent retailer to, a large corporation, company? Do you have any examples, or even small things that you think would or have been great to see different companies utilize when you consult?
Yeah, I did mention appreciation, of course, but one way you can show appreciation, of course, is taking someone to lunch. But to be honest, as a mom, when I got taken out to lunch, in my head, because I would want to be like, I want to be back in the office so I can get my work done. Um, Although I appreciated that, also I would look at the food and be like, wow, I wish I could share this food with my kids.
Oh,
So one
wow.
thing I would appreciate more is if they gave me, some little keychains, or a little blanket or a cup or something I could take home. And then guess what? I just regift the joy. Um, so I think there's real simple ways that a company can show their appreciation and loyalty. And really, I think Tiffany's does it. They give a little Tiffany bag to the kids that they walk in, and they tell them it's for their marbles. I
Oh,
don't know if kids have marbles anymore, but it's just, those little things, those tangible things. I know companies are trying to get away from a lot of that stuff, budget cuts and all that. But I just think it's a lot of fun to bring something home to your family, even just something small to share.
I like that example. I think I remember whenever my dad would go on a business trip and he'd come home, he'd have, whether it was the airplane peanuts. I guess they don't do peanuts
Yeah.
anymore, people are allergic, but he would bring a snack, or he did get a keychain. It was the excitement of him going away and coming back. So that's a great example, and I could see how that would translate to even company pride, to brand awareness on the marketing side, kids, wanting to work there because their parents enjoy that job. So that's a great physical, tangible task that companies can do, or even bring to their teams, and have fun with it with the.
Yeah, I don't think people have business cards anymore, but I remember having my business card, and my son would just want to put it in their wallet or
Oh,
carried it
yeah,
around. That's their mama, or that's. So it's not, even though it's a thing of the past, there's always opportunities to grow the future.
very cool. Let's take a second to thank one of our sponsors. As someone who is passionate about helping others feel their best, I'm excited to share something I truly believe in: Groove Kombucha. Groove is an instant kombucha made for the busy professional. Just mix it with water or sparkling water for a refreshing, gut-boosting drink. Packed with 1 billion CFU probiotics, only 25 calories or 2 grams of sugar. It has organic ingredients, it is eco-friendly, no fridge is needed, and smooth flavors like blueberry mint make it easy to love. It's valued at $30. Get your free sample now at groovekombucha.com/GroceryPulse. Subscribe today and get your gut and daily support it deserves. Groove Kombucha. Feel good, live better. You brought in something kind of like a little bit about the employees. There's like 50% are out in the field and 50% are in. We went through kind of a unique time where I think everyone's been learning, but that balance. And you mentioned something before we even started the podcast, but you mentioned a little bit about this transition of bringing people back to work in a work facility. That was interesting because I think for many of us, whether it's a grocery store or whether it's, our corporate office, or, what was that like for your team, and how did that go? And what were kind of some of the initiatives that happened during, and realizations and learnings?
Yeah, so similar to the grocery business, the utility company is definitely needed. Everyone needs to keep the lights on, right? So quite a large population of ours did never had the opportunity to work from home. Similar to the grocery industry, they were always, always, always out there in the field. But we do have the office workers, and then we did have the remote work. And so because it was such a drastic change, we did the best we could to allow them to work from home and help them with their work environment at home so it would be set up so that they could be successful. And really there was a lot of success with that, but we really missed the collaboration. And especially as new employees came on board and older, it's just, people think they used to talk about, what is it, the water cooler conversations, but those actually are pretty important. Or have you ever heard about open door policy? Well, if there's no doors, that people could walk into, how can they go and ask those managers those little questions? They don't want to just have meetings with them, managers. Sometimes you just have a question about a process. So, in work, in-house in office, or face-to-face collaboration is very important. So, but we also wanted to allow our employees to have the work-life balance. And so, but at the same time, I noticed that the company, because of COVID, had a reduction in facilities needing to be used. So because of this, hybrid situation, before it was just groups of employees that would be hybrid, but now, quite a large population, maybe 50% of the population was now going to be hybrid. And so we don't have the need for so much real estate. It seemed like the company had quite a few different things, like, oh, let's do hotel work. But guess what? If you ask an employee to come back to the office and then you tell them to find a desk, that's not very intuitive. That's not really great for teamwork. If
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to sit by their teammates or their managers, you gotta really focus. Is your focus to bring them back into the office, or is it to reduce your real estate? Again, if you want to create that, and then how are you looking to change your culture? So, if your culture was working in the past in a positive sense, what about that was working? Was it because your employees were in the same department in a close area? So, those are definitely things. I know a lot of people are going to the hotel type work situation. Also, we don't have business phones anymore. So they have to also make sure, you would think that in this day and age with all the high tech, that Bluetooth would not interfere with the next cubicle over. But sometimes you get those conversations in. So you do got to make sure, that your technology is with it. Or, with the Wi-Fi, you would think, oh, we're all in the office. Everyone's Wi-Fi should work. Well, sometimes it doesn't, right? How come these employees' Wi-Fi works better at home than in the office? Or what happened to the cleaning crew, right? So all of a sudden, now we need, more cleaning crew, or the bathrooms don't work. So there's a lot of things. If you want to have employees be successful and successfully bring them back to work, you got to give them the proper work environment. If, the refrigerators aren't working for them to store their lunches in, or the vending machines aren't stocked, then again, you're not going to have that environment that they're expecting. And that really you should be, providing to your employees.
Yeah. No, it's funny because you think of like a small like office experience, but then think about it, and it's like a corporate, like getting a mass chunk of employees, and that brings the morale, that brings the employees. Now they're focused about work experience versus like getting their job done, and so that could be a whole chain of effect. I kind of wanted to bring up some facts about, so we talked a little bit about quite a few things on, the punching glove, the golden spoon, and then also working your way up, and then even some success on implementing the morale of your team and making sure they're focused, or how to support them in a work life balance. But there's kind of the like thought process of AI and work retention. I think that's a huge thing in the grocery and even in any company. One of the biggest expenses is labor, and when you don't give your employees a raise, it costs more money to go recruit those employees and then train them and then bring them on to be full time. So it depends on the industry, but I think turnover rates, annual turnover rates in the grocery space are around 60%. And I think even my family's grocery store is Goodwin's. Like, we have a college campus next by, but we only get these college students for 2 to 4 years. And then we got to hire, and sometimes it's not the right college student and then they leave. And so, training and getting them up to speed and then, making sure they know how to serve our customers at the same caliber. That's a big thing in the retail space, but then also I'm sure in any, even in tech, I mean, even in finance, getting employees, recruiting them and then making sure they stay. Is there trainings or that have impacted retention or any things that you've seen that your company is or any companies have implemented that has kind of supported investing in? Was it kind of, you mentioned even the work life balance, but have you seen anything in those areas that have been helpful for different companies?
Yeah, like you're saying, I mean, retention and recruitment, it's a big space, right? We have customer service employees. Those employees have a lot of stress, a lot of metrics, a lot of so and then we have, like you're saying, we have those college interns. We get them, over the summer, but they're just internship programs. With those programs, we do our best to really knit them in, in a special way, so that way, when they're ready to make a job choice, we hope that they will come back or even come back during the summertime the following year. We've even had made exceptions that, hey, let's them work part time, even if they're working remotely from a different university within California, still, of course. So we try to be creative with that. It's okay to ask those creative questions. It's okay to hear no. And then even with the retention process, it's like, really, why might they be leaving? Sometimes you might find that they just need a schedule change, but they're not confident enough to ask for that. Or really, yeah, they had some difficulties in their home life. So they might even need to take, a short leave of unpaid or paid leave of absence. So, or maybe they have a medical condition. So there's a few things that you can do, but to help with the retention. But like you're saying, it definitely is, if to lose someone who has, the knows the systems, that knows the culture, we don't want to do that. We want them to stay with our company. We want to provide as best we can. And I think, I mean, at least at our company, we've shown that our average, we have a long life. Our employees, definitely stay with the company for quite a while. But that just goes back to the leadership. Leadership being available and open to listen, and really getting HR involved when there is those difficult questions. And that's, again, sometimes the hard thing about being part of HR is you don't make everyone happy, but you're doing your best to keep an employee at work. I mean, I remember there was this one guy, and he really wanted to work, but he had a situation, and he needed something. And I wish I could tell the manager why he needed it, because it was something that he really needed.
Yeah,
But I can't. But I could talk, and I worked it out. So then the employee ended up being such a great employee once he got this item that he needed. I'll never forget, one time I had this call. We had to have layoffs, unfortunately. That does happen as well. And this guy called me back, and he had terminal cancer. And he said he never took time off because he just appreciated working for this company and for his bosses and his management. And sadly, he passed in a few months after that. But I guess, his testimony was that he encouraged me, to be a hard worker, to really put it in there, and to have faith in the leadership. But yeah, it does go both ways. Leadership also needs to make sure that they're taking care of their employees, and I've seen that in so many instances.
that's awesome. Yeah, I think a team needs a good leader, and if a leader doesn't lead, it's almost like they're just they're following kind of a vision that's aimless. But that's awesome to hear that testimony. I think those.
Yeah, we got to be careful that we're not just here to track to see how many times just always track the metrics. Although it's really important to bring in the HR analytical side. Yes, what, instead of just saying, how come this person took off sick 5 days? Let's look at the department and see if this is a trend.
Yeah.
And if it's a trend, then let's see what we can do. And that's how, HR can use the analytical part, that we don't just focus on one person, but let's look at the trend. Let's look at the bigger picture. Okay, and then we can prevent, like you're saying, any people from leaving, or we can prevent a bigger crisis from happening.
Yeah, no, I think that's important and that's really smart. I mean, if you start seeing, certain employees after a while start disappearing, why are they disappearing? Is it, a manager? Is it, a working environment? Is it, they don't have the right tools, so they're not set up? Or, is it some interview question that is not getting the right individual in the right position? I think that's a good point. So with looking at trends within data on people and company culture, could you open that a little bit more for me? I'd love to learn.
Yeah. So, for instance, HR, a lot of the people just think, oh, it's just a people organization. They deal with the escalations, the problems, the hiring, the firing. But in between, there's definitely quite a bit of analytics. And these analytics are going to help the organization know how to move forward. So, for instance, during COVID, and we could tell you how many people had taken off, from what department they were off on, and how long they were off for. And then we could recommend what type of pay we should have for these. How can we take care of our employees who are off? What kind of protection could we give them? Not just physical protection for the employees out in the field, but also protection for their jobs, because we knew we came up with an unusual crisis. So we did definitely have those data analytics that can change so quickly, and then all of a sudden the pandemic's over. So then we need to see improve that. You know what, our employees aren't using these type of benefits anymore, and instead we have this now we have money that's being saved. So HR can then project. Of course, we have actuaries for that and things, but they can project that employees are going to be back at work. And then just knowing your culture. Yes, maybe we had a high amount of people out, but we also know our culture. We know these employees are coming back to work. So and if they're not, and if not, in what capacity, how are we going to help them?
Yeah.
So I think analytics is very important to know how to, for leaders to know how to have a strategy for their future growth of where the company is going.
Yeah. And I think that's such a big thing when you have so many employees, so many different branches, and you support so many households with utilities, and analyzing that data and utilizing, getting the right questions to your HR team to get you the right answers to facilitate the right direction of your company, is a great use of HR. It's not just firing and hiring. There's a lot of more
Yes.
components to it. Very cool. I kind of was curious, like we're going in through this AI technology phase within the couple, these past couple of months, and we're hearing like Chat GBT, or we're hearing, artificial intelligence and robots. But I kind of have some stats on HR, and I think there's a big shift on AI in hiring. So some of the stats that I found were 80% of companies are going to start using some of these AI driven hiring tools that screen candidates. I believe there are screening candidates, but it reduces the time of hiring 30 to 50%. And then also, like, there's benefits, reviewing, kind of finding those outliers like you mentioned, whether it's looking at the department at whole or looking at the data, but cutting admin costs. There's some like payroll benefits and different AI tools. Do you kind of see AI more appearing in HR, or do you think HR is human resources, so you do need that human element to negotiate or to mediate? But I'm curious what your thoughts in HR you'll see more in these large.
Well, I need to be careful what I say. I don't really want to make a career change right now. So I gotta say you need the personal factor. But
Right.
I definitely have seen great benefits of AI. There are typical questions that are put out there by the employees quite often. So definitely using AI to help with the customer service side of things is just great. It even helps the employee to be able to find the answer and how to best handle that employee or the customer on the other line. So and then as regards to there are so many new benefits and laws, and just to use AI to, let's say, hey, give me the meat of this, or these other or these other companies are doing this. And, just to kind of break it down to give you a strong outline, and then you can build your processes and cases from there. I mean, I think AI is a great tool to use, but let's not let it simplify our own thoughts, our own
Right.
mentality. And I think
Yeah.
that's it's key. That when we're responding to an employee, especially if a manager is responding to an employee, they need to use their own voice. They use AI. They might think AI knows them, but AI doesn't know them as much as that employee knows their manager. And when
Yeah.
people start pulling in too much AI for their own um, email type responses, then I think that's where you might. I can't appreciate it. But in a bigger sense, I mean, I think it's great a tool to really give us information that is needed to find out what other industries are doing, to really start pulling some of that stuff together. And I'm excited because we're constantly trying to update our systems, and there are so many things that are still manual, believe it or not. And I'd love for to see those things get more automated, so that we can just really think at a bigger strategic level.
Yeah, and I think what you said is in relation to like a balance. I feel like it's always a balance. It's hard. You play with technology, but you also need a human factor. And the humans created the technology, so don't let technology take the human's place. It's more of like what you said, like a tool. Um,
Yes, you
there's
said it great.
there's still testing periods with where you can put things in like what is right, what is wrong, and it still messes up. So I mean, when you come to someone as an HR, like you're dealing, like you said, that individual. Like, for example, that one story you told, that individual needed something particular. And once he got that, that was his success. And it's like the computer doesn't know him. You can put all of that information and still, we have that intuition, we have that gut feeling. So I appreciate you saying, kind of trust that. I think this is something that was recently brought up in a last episode with James West Keys, and I think there's a huge shift on different policies in that the I guess the government removing diversity, inclusion in that context of not really pushing that agenda. But something James brought to me, and I kind of wanted to ask you your opinion on it. I thought was really interesting. In a sense, he said it's such a hard area sometimes nowadays to even talk about, and yet some theories that I've always had is that whenever I owned a company or grew a company, I would want so many different age groups, different cultures, and different individuals to brainstorm and bring ideas forward. And so there's some studies where if there's women on executive boards or in CEO positions, they are more safe and they're more likely not to go out of business or bankrupt. And I think something that James said in the last episode was he said there's so many variables under that label, but the reality is if you can bring new ideas and new innovation to a company, that can push a company's innovation and success. But it's not necessarily like hurting the company if you do that. But I think it needs to be facilitated more by a company, in a sense of bringing. Like I've always had this thought where I was with my nieces and nephews, and I took one of them shopping, and I was just trying to learn how her brain thinks, and it thinks way different than me. Whether it's the trends, whether it's the different products, and I'm like, I'll buy you a shirt, and it's like that style is not her style, and I'm like, what? That's nice. I have decent style. So it's like, how do you foster a culture and understand it in a sense of where the diversity and inclusion is really not it's really for the growth of innovation and ideas. And I think there were some stats that I'd like to pull out. So programs that foster that business diversity have increased a 30% higher in retention rate, and I think it's 20% better employment engagement. And then there's also a feedback loop on different levels where there's a high percentage there as well in job satisfaction and job performance. But I think, how do you balance that? Whether it's business and that uh, innovation concept, but even with it being removed, and I think there's different thought processes, and it's even hard for me to talk about it because I don't want to offend certain individuals. But I think there is that component of, you bring new ideas to a table, you're going to try to push. And I think even with politics, now I'm going on tangent, but even in politics, there's two parties because their goal is to push each other forward. But now it's like, you say you're one way or another, they don't even want to mesh. And it's sad because ultimately you enlighten each other. You may not have to agree, but you're pushing for a better government or a better politician, or you're pushing your views. But I kind of wanted to ask, like, how have you seen that play in the HR space, and how do you balance it, and how do you create the right grounding for it, in a sense of, your HR, you can't get political in that person's life, but then you want to cultivate similar goals of what the vision of the company is.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. With it does sound like right now it's complicated because the political party may have changed. However, if you have a company vision and a company culture, I hope that one of the key things is integrity and in caring about your employees.
Yeah.
And really, if you're hiring from your local community, you're going to have that diversity and that inclusion. Now, if you're purposely going out, of course, there's always going to be those specialized roles that maybe you can't find in your community. We'll just open it up a little bit more. But you got to try to look to your local community. But then also, again, believe in yourself in your values. And if you believe in your values of bringing your employees up, then a mother like me who came on board, when I was pregnant when I joined the company, can move from a lower position, to quite a high position in a company. So, and doesn't always. We don't need the law to tell us what we should do, right?
Mm,
It is there to enforce something, but since the law now is being removed, of course, then we don't have to do it, but we should always still do the right thing. And that's where, yes, like you're saying, in the past there has been some situations where they did not have a balance, and perhaps that's why the law was put on, and it was for a good cause. But now I do hope in California, in our country, that we're still going to continue to do the right thing. That we're going to be, like you're saying. I mean, we don't just need the younger ones; we need the older ones. We need all the different diverse trains of thoughts, and even some things that people don't think as being exclusive, they can be. By if you always require a college education for your applicants, well, you're going to exclude a large population of people who have different types of minds, like you're saying, but aren't being used to their capacity because you're putting that on there. So instead, you have to reword those job applications to experience, or give them an opportunity to prove that they can do this job, and don't let AI, just disqualify them either. So
wow.
I think you have to be conscious of how you write your job applications to make sure you're getting the right applicants, and even your test, make sure that those are also conscious of, to make sure you get a diverse population. And then also realize that some jobs do have some categories. So if it's a male mainly dominated position, then you need to make sure that you have diversity within that population, right? So there's different ways to balance things out, and to be transparent with your needs. Sometimes that's a little hard. Sometimes people don't like when you're saying, "Oh, we're going to give a certain type of scholarship or opportunity for these groups of people." But in the long run, you'll see that the benefits pay off. So, for instance, at our company, we try to bring in certain speakers. Let's say we bring in veterans, we bring in disabled employees who share their experiences and their successes, and then that gives and then we go out and visit in the community, and that draws also the right type of opportunities for future employees, and make sure that our current employees are staying well-rounded.
Very cool. Yeah, well answered. Thank you for that. I think that sometimes it's a interesting area or gray zone that, conflicts can arise. But I think if you focus on, what the values are and your local community and what your mission is, you really, your goal is to make your company better.
One thing someone one time told me, and as a child, and I just, I guess I'd like to just reiterate because it stuck with me. And I remember it was my father, and he said, "Oh, you see the Olympics?" He said, "You see how many gold medals we ran?" He said, "You see the diversity up there? That's why we got so many gold medals." And I just that stuck with me. We
Yeah.
all have our contributions to bring, and if you really want to go for the gold in your company, then you'll look to the diversity.
That's awesome. That was so good. Well said. So I kind of do these like try to bring in a little bit more for CPG or grocery leaders when I get to interview individuals with such a great resume or caliber. And so when I think of like CPG, consumer packaged good companies, when building a team or, I'm actually moving into a position where I'm going to be, I push the industry forward with this podcast for grocery, but I'm going to be moving into a position where I'm going to be a leader of a CPG company. What are some like qualities that you see in teammates, or whether you see them get promoted, or some adjectives or some phrases that you feel like have something where I asked Krista Palmer, a bronze medalist Olympian, and she said grit was one of her words. But what are some words that you feel like you describe, the employees moving up, or you seen them move up, or you kind of felt when you moved up that kind of stuck with you on the HR side? Maybe they got shut down because of something, but that didn't affect them in a sense of they wanted to keep going and work for the company and worked 10 years longer than expected, or things like that.
Yeah, so alongside grit becomes like perseverance, someone being conscientious and loyal. I think for me, persistence, perseverance, loyalty. It might just be in the way I am, but being patient too. A lot of times I heard that there was no more opportunities, that this is the highest, or this is how it was going to be. And you know what? That's not the truth. Things change. Things change overnight. Things change, and so don't limit yourself by others' limitations. And so, and it's not one word, but
Yeah.
I just be patient. Keep working hard and to persevere.
Yeah. Persevere. How do you say that word? Conscientious?
Be conscientious. I think being conscientious means to me, you look inside yourself of ways that you can improve. There was a time in my life where I felt like I was very introverted. So I forced myself, well, let's say in the grocery store, I was very shy. So I forced myself to smile the entire time,
Yeah.
and I knew if I smiled, my words are going to come out more nicely. So anyways, you just have to believe in yourself and be conscientious. And if you need a new skill, then you go and get it.
That's awesome. I almost forgot. So you're a mother, and I just wanted to say, it's awesome to see how you've been able to push yourself in your career and then also be an outstanding mother. What are some of the components when if you were to talk to your ideal, team, or your ideal the company that you're working for, or maybe you have it. But if when you think of like the balance of advice you could give the leadership of so many different executives that have this authority, is it training, is it resources, like, or always growth opportunities, or is it a gym membership? When it plays into role of what would your advice be for their teams?
Yeah, I mean, as taking off kind of my HR hat, just thinking from a mother perspective, and then being able to just work for so long, the thing that's helped me advance and stay with my career and have four children. I will say that most people at my level either have no children who are
Mm,
women, or maybe they're all grown. And I think compassion is pretty important. That doesn't mean that someone doesn't work or that someone's not available to work. It just means an understanding, that there's that understanding from management and leadership, that you're not going home and putting up your feet. You're going home to hurry up and make dinner, and
yeah,
get
yeah,
kids, run them around to their sports and activities, but we're also giving 100% out work, to appreciate their loyalty. I think appreciation, compassion, and then the other item is the benefit side. It's not necessarily paid benefits, but I do know that within our company we did have an employee assistance programs, and they just helped me at my time where I had my frustration time in finding like a daycare. They just provided phone numbers for me. They didn't make the phone calls, but they had the contacts, and so I was able to, obviously, find out which ones I liked, as far as daycares. But those outside, sure, the gym membership would be great if I could go. We do have those type of things, but a lot of companies offer, instead of having a gym membership, why don't you just give them $100 toward staying
right.
active? But maybe they can use it on their children too, because I bet if their children are active, then they're active.
Yeah,
So not just make it's only for the employee, but allow for the whole family to be able to use that benefit, even if it's just $100. So I think a little bit of compassion and loyalty, appreciation, goes a long way.
yeah. I like how I personally was thinking of all these like itemized but your first word was compassion. And I enjoyed that. You used like an adjective that describes so many different scenarios that fit into that. So that I felt like that was a well used HR moment of a word. So thank you. So I do a fire chat every episode. I kind of just go through like 5 quick questions. It's supposed to be a short answer. If you could say it, sometimes you can say a little more. It's really dependent on you, but it's kind of mixed in with grocery and HR. So I'm going to just go ahead and ask them now. So do you believe more in self checkout or a grocer checking you out?
I like grocery checkout. Sorry. Those
Awesome.
self checkout robots.
No, very cool. Do you like online shopping or pickup? So they're technically both online, but one you just drive up, one you get it delivered. Oh, sorry, it'd be delivery or pickup.
Hmm. If I'm out and about, I love pickup,
Okay,
but
cool.
you know, but I definitely understand the role of delivery.
Okay,
I just like a little bit of face-to-face interaction, so pickup's great.
awesome. The human touch. I like that.
Yes.
When you think of HR, if you could, would you say like more resources for individuals or more like maybe more structure or manuals or um, yeah, I don't know if that's a really good question, so I apologize.
So employees don't want more processes and more manuals. Use what you already have and help them learn with what you have. Give them help them know what you already provide before you try to provide additional. You might already have enough for them, but they
Yeah.
just don't know it because they don't know what your benefits are. They just might not know, and so they can't appreciate or use your benefits. But if you train them and you have and give them an opportunity to be able to reach those, then I think you're going to find much more satisfaction.
Okay. Would you say hybrid or remote for attracting new employees?
I think hybrid.
Okay. And my last one, what's your I guess your favorite thing about HR?
It's always a different ride. Is that every day's a different ride, even if we have the same roller coaster. Every day's a different ride. So I don't
Different
know how to
level.
explain it otherwise. It's a lot of fun. We got to get a lot of different problems and issues every day, and meet a lot of unique people.
That's awesome. Deborah, this has been very fun. I think just picking your brain on HR and all your years of experience, and I think it's something so unique I get to be positioned in with this podcast, and I love it because of that. just learning the stories from what you said on, that one boss that kind of was like a servant leader that set you up for the presentation and pushed you.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
that still sticks to me. We need those individuals in our company. We need to be those people. And I think we will be those people, especially with our mindset. If we're growing, we're learning, and we have the best thought and morals. And I think we've even covered grocery. We've talked about maintaining employment, CPG products, building teams, even AI, and then even building a diverse team, and so much more, even a fire chat. So it's been awesome. I just wanted to, if people wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way? Is it through LinkedIn, or I could also list your email in down below, if that's easiest in the caption.
LinkedIn's great. I really like it as a business platform. I really like the connection piece with LinkedIn. And it's
Awesome.
great for me to have the opportunities to see other people as well and meet other people.
Very cool.
Yeah, I want to take the time to thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I was a little nervous, but you make it easy. And I always learn something from you.
All right. Thank you so much, Deborah. Take care.
Okay, take care.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm your host, George Goodwin. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews are submitted into our quarterly raffle for the free Airbnb or a $100 gift card. Feel free to reach out to us individually on LinkedIn or Instagram and let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to check out our weekly blog on innovaragency.com and share the grocery love with your fellow grocers. Cheers.